Hello, 308ers. I just want to say thank you very much for watching this video. I know we didn't get through everything we needed to. The first slide here that I have are just the steps that we didn't necessarily write out in class. I just want to talk through them quickly. You can pause the video here. You can write these in your notes and just try to get an understanding of the steps for completing the square. This is to complete the square. Alright, so the first step is to move the constant to the other side of the equation, okay? And then this only applies if there's a leading coefficient. A leading coefficient would be something like 5x squared, okay? That leading coefficient would have been 5. If there is a leading coefficient, I think the easiest way to do this, and this is after a lot of thought, because I've taught it in different ways, but I think the easiest way to do this is just to divide everything by that leading coefficient. It might leave you with fractions, but that's okay. If it leaves you with fractions, you were going to deal with fractions anyhow. The third step is to complete the square. And make sure that after you do the completing the square step, you add the constant to both sides of the equation. Both sides is super important. How do I complete the square? You take your middle term, you divide it by 2, and then you square it. Okay, and instead of saying divide by 2, I might start saying multiply by a half, because dividing by 2 and multiplying by a half are the same thing. Step 4 isn't really a step, but this is key, guys. Really be careful with your fractions. Meaning, when I divide a fraction, really you're just multiplying the denominator. And when you're adding your fractions, you have to get an LCD. I would use a calculator, and so on and so forth. Then we're going to rewrite the left and right side, and then we're going to solve using the square root method. So let's go to our first example. Okay, so here's our first example. This is the second example in your notes. So first, we're going to do our first step, which is to move our constant over to the other side of the equal sign. So I'm just going to subtract over 12. And when I get that, I get 2x squared minus 6x equals negative 10. Cool, so now I'm going to do the step. I only do the second step if I have a leading coefficient, and here I do. So all of these are divisible by 2. So to get rid of my leading coefficient, I just divide everything by whatever the leading coefficient is, which in this case is 2. So here I get an x squared, and then minus 3x. Let's add in a blank space, because we're about to complete the square, equals negative 5 plus blank space. So my next step is the completing the square step. Okay, so when I complete the square, I always kind of do it off to the side. And you take your middle term, which now it's negative 3. You divide it by 2, okay, or multiply by a half, same thing, and then you square it. So I usually have my kids like circle this number, because this is actually the number that is going to be something that we use, okay? But you circle it, you square it. Alright, now that's the number. So when I square negative 3 halves, I get 9 over 4. So 9 over 4, this is the number you add into the left and the right side of your equation. So you're going to add in 9 over 4, and you're going to add in to both sides. Whatever you do one side, you got to do the other. And, ladies and gentlemen, that is the completing the square step. So now I'm going to rewrite. When you rewrite, okay, you're going to write this as a quantity squared. The number that goes in the parentheses is the number you circled. It's just when you divide it by 2. So here I have a minus 3 over 2. Don't worry about there being a fraction. And that is the whole quantity squared. Because we just completed the square, we made a perfect square trinomial. Now on the other side, I would use a calculator if you're not good with adding your fractions together, but we end up with negative 11 over 4 here. Guys, now we can solve just by square rooting both sides and going from there. So let's square root both sides. So I get x minus 3 over 2 equals plus or minus, let's see, the square root of negative 11 is, let's do an I root 11. And over the square root of 4, which is just 2. Now I'm just going to add over my 3/2, which is really nice because these actually have a common denominator. So I'm going to write my final answer as this, a positive 3 plus or minus I root 11 all over 2. So there we have it. That's your answer. And we're going to do one more example. Okay, the last example. Let's go ahead and move our constant over. And now we have a 3x squared minus 5x equals negative 11. We got to get rid of our leading coefficient, guys, so you have to divide everything by 3. This isn't as nice because it doesn't come out very pretty. I do have an x squared minus 5 over 3x. Let's put in our blank space, equals negative 11 over 3 plus blank space. Okay, again, you can't complete the square, though, if there's a leading coefficient. So now I'm going to do the completing the square step on the side. Whoops. So when I divide my middle term by 2, I'm really multiplying by 1/2. So that's the way I like to think about it. And so I have a negative 5 over 6, circle it, square it, and we get 25 over 36, which is what we're going to add to both sides. Oops. So we're adding that to both sides, 25 over 36. Awesome. Okay, guys, so now we need to rewrite the left and the right side of my equation. So here, remember, the number I circle is the number that goes inside your parentheses. Just a quicker way to factor. Okay, we get x minus 5/6 squared equals negative 11/3, okay, plus 25 over 36. Guys, I would use your calculator for that. If not, then you're just going to multiply both 11 and 3 by 12 to get a common denominator, and you can add by hand that way. I think it's easier to use your calculator. So when we use our calculator, we can reduce the fraction, everything. We get negative 107 over 36. All right, almost there. Now we're just going to square root both sides. And when we do that, we get x minus 5 over 6 equals, let's pull out the negative under the square root and turn it into an I. So the negative, not negative, I'm sorry, just I times the square root of 107. Square root of 36 is just 6. So we're almost done. One more step. We're just going to add over the 5/6. That's okay. The 5/6 to both sides. And we get x equals, this is nice, they have a common denominator. So I'm just going to write this as 5, I forgot a crucial step, plus or minus I root 107 over 6. So we have 5 plus or minus I square root of 107, all divided by 6, and that's actually the answer, guys. So, moral of the story, I know with my third period I showed factoring out the leading coefficient and then multiplying both sides and all this crazy stuff. I think the easiest way to do this problem is exactly how I just showed you. With the crucial step here of dividing everything by whatever that leading coefficient is. Yes, you're going to deal with fractions, but trust me, this is the easiest way to do it. So that's the moral of the story, guys. Hopefully this helps. We're going to go over it in class tomorrow. We're going to review, but please, 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 tonight, work on that review sheet, as much of it as you can, so you come with questions for me tomorrow. All right, we'll see you then. Peace out.